Wednesday, the 7th of July. Today is the last day of ESOF activities here in Turin. In the afternoon, the activity will close down. There will be the transfer ceremony, and the keys of ESOF will be given to Dublin for the summer of 2012. Still today, there are many conferences and meetings that can be attended, and many scientists and researchers who are talking about their topics and their research. We cannot avoid talking about climate change in this last appointment. Climate change was discussed yesterday and today thoroughly. Climate change prediction models have been discussed and assessed, and they are needed in order to be able to foster appropriate policies to counteract the effects, the impacts of climate change, and to put in place appropriate policies for mitigation and adaptation. One of the most affected continents is Africa, and Mohamed Hassan from Africa gives us his opinion on that.
Africa contributes very little to greenhouse gases, and hence Africa is not really a problem when it comes to climate change. And yet, Africa suffers more than any other region in the world when it comes to the impact of climate change, because it has a very fragile ecosystem, because it has a very low adaptive capacity. And that is why the African group decided for the first time that they should negotiate by themselves and not depend on the developing countries, including China and India and so on. They have to have their own view. And their own view is very clear. And that is all they ask for, is that the climate change, the global change, global warming is not our responsibility. But at the same time, we suffer most. We need to empower ourselves in terms of adaptation. We need to build our adaptation capacity. And in order to do that, we need financial resources to enable us to do that. Otherwise, we will be suffering from climate change more than anybody else, and nobody will take care of us. And that's why they went to Copenhagen with a very, very strong message that Africa needs to build its adaptation capacity to handle the impact of climate change.
Research and development can do a lot to mitigate negative impacts of climate change on fragile ecosystems. But research can also help in exploiting environmental characteristics to improve quality of life in southern countries. Here in Turin, we've seen many devices that will contribute to push sustainable practices further on. For example, here we have a small invention by a Swedish lady who developed a tool to purify water in warm and poor countries. This little case contains a 10-liter tank which can be filled with environmental water. Exposed at the sun for 6 hours, the water will be taken at 70 degrees Celsius and purified from microbiological contamination. The final output will be clean, warm water that can be used straight away to cook food or drank after cooling it. Besides providing clean water, this little case saves women time to boil water on wood fires, saving as well good quantities of wood. Many beneficial outputs for a small device which is presently proposed for sale or to be included in emergency aids kit for international organizations operating in southern countries.